Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
A lot of people in Canada, like a lot of people in the United States, really obsessed with the series Making a Murderer. And so there's this conversation going on about the series. What do you hope people talk about when they talk about that series?
I hope they talk about the broader questions that the series raises. I understand the fun of the whodunit quality to the underlying concrete cases that the movie covers, but I also think the filmmakers did a really quite good job of raising broader questions about the administration of criminal justice, especially in the United States. But to some extent, the questions would be applicable anywhere.
Maybe because of the power of the documentary, and certainly because of the facts in the case, there's some very strong emotions about it. And so I've read where people have called it a travesty of justice, a miscarriage of justice. How would you characterize what happened in those cases?
Troubling. I mean, really troubling. And, you know, quite unusual in the particulars, in that, you know, to have someone who's exonerated after 18 years in prison for a crime he did not commit to be charged then just over 2 years later with a new and even more serious crime is of course just very unusual in its particulars. But if you shift to Brendan Dassey's experience, that's unfortunately not at all uncommon or atypical. You know, a juvenile who's not equipped intellectually to compete with the police in an interrogation process and finding himself enmeshed in a criminal justice system where there are real questions about the fairness of his journey through that system. So, you know, I've reacted in much the same ways that many viewers have.
It's funny we're having this conversation at a time that the O.J. Simpson trial has suddenly become front and center for a new generation of people because of a TV series, a fiction TV series, I guess, or at least a dramatic TV series based on that trial. But I remember saying in the wake of O.J. Simpson to a lot of people in Canada, this was a pretty unusual case, happened, you know, in circumstances we don't often see. So I'm wondering about the Steven Avery trial. How typical, in your experience as a criminal defense lawyer, are the issues in the Avery trial? How typical are they to what you see on a year-to-year basis?
Well, real questions about whether the police actually planted evidence, augmented the case by, you know, contriving evidence that wasn't there. Those happily are fairly rare cases. They occur, but they're relative rarities. Other aspects of Steven Avery's case, for example, an accused or defendant drawn from a socioeconomic underclass, are the norm, very much in the United States or probably many countries. So you know, you mentioned O.J. Simpson. We remember that trial 20 plus years ago, precisely because of the status of the defendant and how atypical that was to have someone of a high socioeconomic status charged with 2 homicides in that case, or really any serious crime.
And so what's the lesson, do you think, of the Steven Avery case? What should particularly an American audience take away from it?
You know, it sounds corny, but the lessons really are try to hold off judgment till you hear the evidence. Maybe presume that someone's not guilty rather than presume that they are. Question the role of lawyers in pretrial publicity. Don't invest blind faith, at least in police agencies. View it all skeptically when liberty's at issue.